So, after the announcement of Metroid Dread, I found myself playing a lot of Metroid games. I first got hands-on with the series around 2015-ish. Club Nintendo had a big chunk of the games, and I got every Club Nintendo card I could find to accumulate stacks of exchangeable star points. Does anyone else miss Club Nintendo? I know My Nintendo is pretty much the same thing, but these days it just pretty much does nothing. Like, at all. I really enjoyed my time with Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, and Metroid II Return of Samus. I didn't really finish any of them, I guess I lost interest or something. Metroid had some controversy in 2016 for its 30th anniversary. Nintendo didn't even acknowledge the series, which led to support for a big fan project called AM2R, and to many it was considered the perfect remake. Then Nintendo hit it with a cease and desist. Oh yeah, also Federation Force was a thing. Not a bad game, but not one many were interested in, and the timing couldn't be more inappropriate. Also, you don't give the realistic branch of the series a chibi art style, not even if it's a spin-off, that's just wrong. But little did anyone know, behind the scenes there was an official remake of Metroid II in the works, released in 2017. Metroid fans were excited. Some claimed Nintendo made it in response to AM2R, but that's unrealistic. Developers Mercury Steam put a lot of love and effort into the game, and would lead to what would become Metroid Dread. Also, Prime 4 was announced, and then they canned it in 2019, and started over. We do not know its current state. Skipping fast forward to now, after the announcement of Dread, I went back and finished Fusion, finished Super Metroid, bought Zero Mission, and finished it. And it appears I am not the only one this announcement had an impact on. Did you know just about the entire series is on the Wii U? Just like that, the digital sales of Metroid games skyrocketed. Everybody wants to play Metroid now, but that comes with some problems. The moment Metroid Dread was announced, not only did the digital markets go nuts, the second-hand market went bonkers. Go on Amazon or eBay, everything from GBA carts and so on are well up in the 3 digits, and I'm pretty sure they weren't before Dread was announced. So, what's Nintendo's solution for making old games available on their current and also bestseller console? Oh dear indeed. So, long introductions aside, today I'm gonna talk about the availability of Metroid games and where you can find them. The first game in this genre-defining series was released on the NES in 1986, and while it hasn't exactly aged gracefully, it is still a fascinating game, especially for its time, and its cartridges are still easy to come by, but it ain't exactly on the affordable side. Thankfully, it was re-released on multiple platforms. The Wii Shop channel, which has sadly been discontinued, the Wii U and 3DS eShops, and was also included on the NES Classic if you were able to get your hands on one, or happen to find one, and is currently on the Nintendo Switch through its subscription service. Here's a tip, if you want to play it like this, I recommend you make a Japanese Nintendo account and download the Japanese Famicom version of the NES app. Why? Well, while all NES games came in cartridge form, in Japan the Famicom had an add-on in the form of the Famicom Disk System, which played games off a floppy disk, making this version of Metroid superior as it has better sound effects, and actually saves your game. Yeah. And since there is basically no text at all, you won't have to worry about not understanding Japanese. Metroid was also playable on the Game Boy Advance, but I will talk about that in a bit. Metroid II, the often forgotten part of the series until its remakes became all the talk, but the original game is nothing to scoff at despite being on the limited hardware of the Game Boy, but doesn't feel as archaic as the NES game. Samus's sprites look nicer, the physics feel better, and you can aim down! Surprisingly, the cartridge is still pretty easy to find and decently priced too. Even though the announcement of Dread has caused some to start selling it a little more expensive, you can still find it for something affordable. Did you know Metroid 2 has an enhanced color palette on the Super Game Boy? By far the best way to play this. The intended colors don't transfer over to the Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance for that matter, but their color palettes don't look too bad either. I believe there was a planned DX version like Link's Awakening, but it's unknown if this was true or just a rumor. Heck, I think fans made their own DX version as well. This game was only ever re-released on the 3DS, and sadly the only colors you're getting is grayscale or this gross green one. Ugh. And yes, I know, I have to mention AM2R, a fan-made full-on remake of the game that was many years in the making. I haven't actually tried it myself, but it looks really nice in my opinion.
Is there anything I can say that someone hasn't already said about Super Metroid? This game is from 1994 and has stood the test of time better than many games have, even ones younger than it, and I can confidently say it is up there as one of the best video games ever made. The story is both significant but kept to a minimum. The game teaches you how to play it just by letting you play it, with no button prompts or tutorials, and there is so much you can learn about the environment and story and the things taking place from subtext alone. Also, it's really fun. There is no shortage of original SNES carts, even if a bit expensive, but you're likely to come across them for better deals at conventions and so on. It was re-released on pretty much every system from the Wii onwards. Sadly, the aforementioned Wii Shop channel is no longer running, but it is on the Wii U as well as the new 3DS. The classic 3DS is unable to emulate SNES games. It was also available on the SNES Classic if you were able to come across one, and just like the original Metroid, Super is available on the Switch through its online service. After multiple years of hiatus, missing the N64 era altogether, the Metroid series returned on both the GameCube and Game Boy Advance in 2002. Metroid Fusion from the get-go is a direct sequel to Super Metroid, although I guess the art style and numbers 3 and 4 made that obvious. But also changes so much. Samus changes, the game's structure changes, your expectations change, and things become scary and mysterious. GBA cards are rather easy to come by, but when Dread was announced, a lot of people started selling it for much higher than usual. The game was also featured in the 3DS Ambassador program among 9 other GBA games. It's cool to know that GBA games were officially on the 3DS, but it's exclusive to early adopters of the system in 2011. And later on, GBA games were released on the Wii U, including, of course, Metroid Fusion, which looks fantastic on a TV screen in HD, but seriously, it seems like a big missed opportunity to not sell them on the 3DS eShop, considering, you know, they actually work, but for some reason Nintendo weren't happy with how it worked. Why? Zero Mission is a remake of the original NES game, modernized and brought up to spec with Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion, streamlining the 2D controls to the best they've ever felt, and adding new content and story. But who on earth made the Shine Spark puzzle so elaborate? Who would possibly figure out half of these on their own? Like Fusion, GBA carts are easy to come by, but the online prices are just ridiculous, absolutely absurd. The game was only ever re-released on the Wii U. By the way, did you know that you could unlock the original Metroid in Zero Mission? Also, the NES Metroid was released as a standalone GBA cart too. Both of them kinda squashed the NES sprites down to fit inside the GBA's resolution. A standalone cart is a lot cleaner than Zero Mission's.
And I guess if you have the GameCube version of Metroid Prime, you could just plug Fusion right into there. The first 3D title in the series, and an FPS as well, takes the established formula and runs with it. It's a nice realistic looking game for GameCube standards, as well as its sequel Prime 2 Echoes, which introduces a lot of new concepts. Now, about getting GameCube games in 2021, yeah, good luck. Some games are easier to find than others depending on the region you're from. Here in Australia, it's basically impossible as they are all so rare, so expensive. You know, I've gone my entire life without being able to try Luigi's Mansion or Double Dash. Metroid Prime 3 was released on the Wii and is built on the same foundation as the first two, but with the Wii motion controls in mind. And being a Wii game, it's much easier to find, but all 3 games were released together as a limited time compilation called Metroid Prime Trilogy. Now being on Wii, Prime 1 and 2 have been updated to use Prime 3's motion controls as well as widescreen support, and being a limited edition it has become somewhat of a collector's item, but fear not, as Prime Trilogy was also re-released on the Wii U eShop. Yay! Metroid Prime Pinball was released on the DS. That's pretty much it. Metroid Prime Hunters was released on the DS, taking place as a single adventure between the main Prime games, with multiple new characters and a focus on multiplayer, or at least it was before they shut down the Wi-Fi service. Please note the value of DS games has been rising as of late, and just be careful not to get it confused with Prime Hunters First Hunt, which is basically just a demo on a card. The full game was also re-released on the Wii U eShop. DS games on the Wii U. That's actually pretty cool. Don't know why they didn't put digital DS games on the 3DS as well, considering DSi stuff was there. Metroid Other M, is a game. Yeah. The first and only game to adapt the 2D gameplay style into 3D, this game has some great ideas, but a lot more issues. One of which is that a lot of what you do is restricted by the story, which is the main focus, but it's not a very good story either. It's a Wii game, you won't have trouble finding a physical copy, I assure you. This too was re-released on the Wii U eShop. Metroid Prime Federation Force... Moving on. So I already briefly explained this game's history at the beginning of this video, and yeah, this was Nintendo's official remake of Metroid II, developed by Mercury Steam, who are currently working on Dread. It takes the beloved 2D formula and builds on it. I myself recently wanted to give this game a go, and wow, is it impossible to find. It is a weird feeling knowing the 3DS is an old system that stores don't stock games for. You can still get them in stores assuming the place hasn't cleared their stock, but just wow, I could not find Samus Returns anywhere. I turned to online stores and none of the official retailers even listed as a pre-owned game, even though they have plenty of Federation Force. And second-hand markets like Amazon and eBay demand anything from $90 to $300. What? I don't understand. Did the game just not sell well? I was under the impression it did really well. This has to be a response to Dread's announcement, right? Pretty much everyone I asked about this on Reddit and Discord just suggested pirating it. Wow. All I can say is shop at your own risk when looking for this. I eventually just gave up and bought the game digitally on the 3DS eShop. So that's pretty much all the ways you can get these games, and if I were to recommend the best way to go, I'd say just buy a Wii U.
Hey, but the Wii U sucks.
Okay, hang on. First up, you can get a Wii U pre-owned for very little. And just like that, you have access to many Virtual Console games from many consoles unavailable on Switch. And the best part, excluding Samus Returns, Return of Samus, and the pinball game, the entire Metroid series is on the Wii U. And in the most affordable capacity too. And it ain't going anywhere anytime soon. Unless, of course, if Nintendo decides to shut down the Wii U and 3DS eShops, like the Wii, but let's not think of that. We were very lucky with the PlayStation 3 store.
Also, if you've never had the chance, pick up a copy of Nintendo Land and try Metroid Blast. It's really fun, especially when you have friends with you.
After binge playing the Metroid games, there's so much I want to talk about, but I was a bit hesitant to make a Metroid video, as the Zelda video I put so much work into didn't get anyone's interest. Please watch it. It's good. But until then, stay tuned, and stay awesome, and be excited for Dread! Bye!